So it's what, probably, what, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning over there?
It's noon now.
Oh, it's noon.
Yeah.
Wow. You're only 5 hours from New York, 4 hours from me. Let's see, 4, 3, 2. Oh, so you're 2 hours from West Coast. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we got some people coming in. Okay, looks like everybody's online. Let's go ahead and play the intro and allow people time to come in. I have a couple of quick announcements, and then we're going to visit with this beautiful divine couple. I'm excited about that. We'll be right back in a minute and 20 seconds. Welcome everybody to the second show of the day. We may do another one later. I don't know. Spontaneously. Just a couple of quick announcements. I want to keep reiterating this. David Icke's coming on first part of January. We're going to release that date a couple days before the show starts for obvious reasons. Also just got word from Morgan that our beautiful beloved sister Sandra Walter is going to come on the same day. So we'll have a nice little masculine feminine balance there and a nice broad discussion platform for the day. I want to also thank everybody for your continued love and support and contributions that allow us to keep doing this by the seat of our pants every day, which is not a complaint because that's how the 5D works, you know, to be present and to know that you have what you need when you need it, and no savings accounts as we move into this new energy. Part of the influence and reality of the new earth frequency of this quantum field, of this limitless potential, is through the new template of the physicalized sacred union, the divine union. We all know that sacred union is describing and has in a sacred text and even in downloads and channelings, has to do with the individual's sacred marriage of masculine and feminine, and the conception and birthing of the golden child energy. And there are couples all over the world, both romantic and not, opposite sex, same sex, but all different varieties that are carrying this frequency. And there are androgynous beings, as we discussed on the show last time. We met some in Sedona, and that are carrying this frequency. So the more we can get it out there, the better off we are. I just want to welcome you both for coming on and sharing space and honoring us with your presence and being open to discuss your journey, which is very, very interesting and very powerful. You and I talked about this last time. It's not about the amount of time that a couple's been together, the connection's been conscious and physicalized on the linear timeline. We're not in a linear realm anymore. And so the individual journeys that you described on the last show, when Saskia couldn't make it, we touched on it, you touched on it, are so important. How you described how you basically emptied the container, did the work to a point where the matching frequency came and met you, and you guys almost knew instantaneously. I just have to ask, though, to start off the show, is who busted the move? Who was the one that said, "Hey, I think there's something going on here"?
Actually, I think I was initially the first to notice. Yeah, I just had, we were in a same healing group course, and it was actually during like like a pineal gland activation, when I strangely just suddenly experienced like an incredible like heart opening, and just like, yeah, just spontaneous like joy eruption, like heart opening. I was just like laughing for hours, and for some reason I just had this strong feeling that I wanted to reach out to Lukiajah, but I also had like resistance. I didn't want to be the person to make the first move, and so I just kind of energetically put it out there that I'm just, basically open for like an interaction. And to my surprise, like when I woke up the next morning, like he had reached out to me and wanted to do some healing work together. And that's how it all started. I was just like, wow, like I was blown away. And yeah, that's how it started. We did like, I think 3 or 4 like sessions together, and we went really, really deep. Yeah, we were just like surprised how much we were able to transmute from like ancient timelines in Lemurian Atlantis. And I mean, it was like this incredible strong connection. And I basically knew it from the beginning, but at the same time, my mind was very strongly activated still. I was like, can this really be true? Is this real? And, the coincidence was that I had already planned a trip to the Big Island, and Lukiajah was just moving from Kauai to Big Island. So we then decided, of course, to meet up. I had planned to go swimming with the dolphins. And yeah, so it was like this really magical first connection on the Big Island. And, we actually managed to swim with dolphins together.
Wow.
And
was
that's
that,
how
was
we,
that
yeah,
tied to, was that connected to, what's his name? Jan Lemire? Jan Lemire? Okay. I know he does that over there now and then. Now, so Saskia, where were you living when, I thought you guys were in a local group, but you were in a virtual group?
Yes, it was like an online group course, and I was in Maui, he was in Kauai, but was just on the verge of moving to Big Island. Yes.
Go figure that. And another thing I noticed too about the couples that are opposite sex couples, because that's easier to detect for me to recall, but it seems like the feminine typically gets it first, right? Like she knows. She knows whether she actually overtly, busts the move or not. You send out the message in the energetic field. So in terms of so you sent it out in the energetic field, and you then approached her the next morning saying maybe we should do some session work. Was that your real motive, or did you want to get closer to her?
To be honest, at that time, I didn't yet think that she was who she is to me. But I was going through something internal where I reached a point of, all right, source, universe, life, God, I need help. I need help to move through this. What's it going to be? And I just heard, reach out to Saskia. So seriously, I just followed that. I reached out to her, and I felt strangely safe to reveal everything to her. And I was very surprised at the level of basically the depth, the amount that we were able to heal together, working together. And by the 3rd or 4th session, we went to a core timeline in Lemuria when divine unions were first being attacked by these, the anti-hierogamic beings, dark forces, and how that was impacting what, I and we were dealing with. And I had a sense, that was the first time I had a sense that, wow, I think she was my partner at the time. And my ego mind didn't want to accept it. So it was just saying, oh, well, maybe she's part of my monad or part of my greater soul family. And I didn't want to think she was who she was for whatever reason. I just my masculine ego was just blocking. But the first day I met her, I just knew, and it wasn't like this big, like whole explosive thing. It was a very peaceful gnosis in my soul. That was just like, oh yeah, here she is.
I can relate to that on a lot of levels. You know, Morgan had been doing conscious inner work and conscious shadow work, zero pointing for many, many years. And I was more intuitively bouncing through my journey for 4 or 5 years when I met her. But I remember, so we spoke for 17 months online, and she finally came over in the very first night. So I rented a hotel room with 2 beds and asked her, you know, can we sleep in the same room? She's like, yes. And I didn't even know this until about a week ago. She mentioned it to me, and I had forgotten about it. But I had the same type of moment, and I was laying on one bed and she was on the other. I said, hey, can I come? You know, I said, do you trust me? And she said, well, I wouldn't be here if I didn't trust you. And I said, okay, can I come lay over there with you? And so I did, and it was that peaceful thing that you're talking about. And I didn't realize this till a week ago, but I put my head on her chest and I started crying. But yeah, I can get what you're saying. It wasn't like all these fireworks went off. It was a subtle knowing, a lot like the individual journey, I guess, that we all have, where we just know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was very peaceful, and simultaneously, between the points of deep knowing, my ego would have freakouts because somehow the identities in me that aren't true to my authentic self knew they were going to have to go through a transformation, ego death process. Yeah. So there was resistance.
Callie was in the house.
Right. Yeah. So it was very, very interesting to go from this deep knowing to my mind trying to make up stories, back to the knowing and back and forth. And kind of that's how it was the first few weeks for both of us. And then the acceptance of truth landed more in our body. And it required, the closer that we come together, the more that we have to transform everything that is inorganic to who we truly are. And that's the challenge, that's the work, you know, of the twin reflection is, are we willing to die 1,000 deaths to get closer to God and each other, no matter how excruciating it is? And it's that's why people say it's the most challenging path, and why some unions decide to take space, because it brings up so much, and either the tools aren't there, or the support system isn't there to support them in going through the portals together. Yeah,
no, I agree with that. And I was really impressed by your description of your journey together, which I believe was 6 or 7 months, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I was really impressed because such a great example of the non-linear aspect that we're in, because you were describing the amount of triggering and transformation that you guys went through, really from the get-go. You know, I mean, like, you guys just jumped in there. I remember, and we talked, you know, you and I talked a bit about the sacred sexual vibration and Helioscamos and you know, the non-physical part of it. And I remember asking Morgan, because she had so much sacred wisdom that she'd been downloading for so many years. And I said, well, do you know what we're supposed to do? And she said, no, I know what we're not supposed to do, though. And that always stuck with me in all the aspects of our relationship. And part of that came to be these energetic separations that we might have. Sometimes they were physical when she was going back and forth, but other times we could be living in the same house and we take time away to integrate, you know, as she says, this is her quote, I'm not always in alignment. How can I expect a relationship to always be in alignment? So I think these periods of separation energetically are important for the individual to come into full alignment and then come back together. And then, of course, there's always an expansion. Have you guys experienced that? Or are you always this congruent?
No, of course, we've experienced a lot of moments where, you know, it's really about us learning on a deeper level to source directly from God first, you know. So it's like, you know, really collapsing out any forms of codependency. So it's like when one of us is out of alignment, you know, the other does not collapse, because we are, you know, sourcing primarily from God. And, you know, that is really like the big piece that even brought us together, you know, like just this inner divine union first, you know, this inner sacred marriage between our soul and God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wanted to ask you too, before I forget, because it is, you know, part of the, it seems to me anyway, the part of the symptoms of ascending is you can't remember anything anymore, but especially in the recent past. But I'm going to say, like, certainly from October, but definitely November and into December, there seemed to be a lot of movement energetically between the masculine and the feminine. Part of it I would describe as the masculine really stepping in to its power. Now, this is not just strictly associated with the male incarnate, but for the most part. But there was also, I know for us, some very powerful uh, elevations and expansions, dimensional experiences in you know, both the energetic field as well as in the physical, in terms of intimacy, sacred sexual vibration, expansion, that type of thing. Really colossal movement that was very much up and down. Like, in other words, we'd have this extraordinary experience, and then we'd wake up the next morning, and for 3 or 4 days, we're both discombobulated and kind of doing our own thing, integrating. Have y'all had that experience as we've had over the last few weeks of the year?
You know, definitely, and that also integrated with what we experienced as a little bit of attack, you know, a little bit of attack energy, and also our inner metamorphosis of the parts of us that we needed to integrate and transcend through our own heart back into an integrated embodiment. So all of that together, dealing with things, it's kind of that the evolutionary arc of when we hit a wall or when we hit something, we have to work through the density, collapse it out, and then the expansion happens, and then we integrate to a whole nother level, and then we're coasting, and then we hit either another upgrade or another a pocket we need to transform, and then we're coasting, and just these continual up levels and integration processes. And definitely there's been some moments where it's just such a euphoric feeling. And what do you say, Saskia?
The heavenly realms.
The heavenly realms.
The heavenly
it's
realms.
Like we've entered into the heavenly realms, and it's a very powerful feeling. And there's a distinction I want to make between the false light bliss realms, which kind of take us into this kind of a realm that's more connected to spiritual bypassing, basically bypassing our feelings, bypassing our responsibility, and just being in bliss. The distinction between that and this heavenly realms, where we've really done the work to integrate and start braiding in higher dimensional realms in our true organic ascension timeline and experience the reward of that.
Yeah, I resonate with that. It's almost like the cognitive dissonance associated with the what do I want to say, the distorted twin flame, you know, label. You know, it's so hard, you know, really to put names on anything as the days go by. But to me, the word that really jumps out, and again, these couples are one representation in the physical of a frequency or a band of frequencies creating a vibration. And the word I'm referring to is sacred. You know, I thought I knew what that word meant. And in the last 3 months, without a lot of conversation with Morgan, you know, which is another thing I like to talk about, that term, that word, that definition has taken on a much broader sense. And I find myself, you know, consciously thinking about it from the human level. Like, what is that? Wow. Like, what do we have? Like, what is there to complain about? Like, wow, what an opportunity. And look at her. And, you know, so much that I can't even say anything to her. I can't even say I love you because it doesn't do it any justice. Does that make any sense?
Totally.
Yeah, my heart is opening and I'm getting a little teary-eyed because, you know, that's especially for the masculine who has gone through so much to forget the inherent sacredness of our spirit and of the feminine, and to have this patriarchal way we've been conditioned, and then by being in union and by learning and growing, and specifically the moments, I've learned from moments when I've been in reaction and how that has caused an imprint or a harm, or any time I ever was in reaction and it made my beloved feel unsafe.
Yeah.
Then it triggered this deep feeling of, wait, what is the truth here? And it's exactly what you're saying, to remember the sacredness and holiness of who we are, but of our divine counterpart, of our union, of God, of the innocence of our being. And that's being restored, you know, in me and in humanity, as we realize the sacredness of who we are, and specifically what you're saying, the sacredness of a union.
Yeah.
And how, like, we shouldn't be bickering, we should be bowing to the love and the gift that is in front of us, and that's so humbling to accept that gift.
Yeah. And it's a challenge too, with all the energy coming in at the speed it's coming in and the magnitude that it's coming in. But you brought up a good point. I'd like to hear what Saskia has to say about this. Because, you know, everything is the same, proportionate to our life experience. You know, my pain's the same as yours. Our stories are different. You know, my elation is the same as yours. Our story is different. But one of the things that you just said that I think is important, we have taken two paths for the most part. If we're talking an opposite sex couple, for sure, where the feminine has had, obviously, from a lineage standpoint, ancestrally, but also from a personal experience, even in just this incarnation, their levels of suppression and oppression and that type of thing, where the man has had the false empowerment, which is so subtle and second nature that we don't even realize how much of a hold it has on us. But you just said something, and that was when she feels unsafe. And what I was getting at is that there are certain things that a man like you and I might engage in. And I might say something or do something or raise my voice or whatever the case is. And I don't see it as being threatening. I just see it as us having a discussion or whatever the case is. But they do see it differently. And there's a reason for that. And it took me a while to figure that one out too. But that they don't see things the way that we do, and to honor the sanctity of that epiphany and modify on a conscious level my own behavior, because it really does come down to the individual, even though we're in a couple. You know what I mean? I don't know, Saskia, do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, like, was there an evolution in terms of his, tempering down his approach to you energetically when there was a, conflict or a heated discussion or whatever?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we've both gone through such an incredible evolutionary shift. Just, we can hardly believe, like, the shifts we've made just, since this summer. Well, I would say it's, I mean, for both of us, it's just like this massive, like, upgrade of our, DNA, of our diamond sun body being restored. And so basically for the feminine essence within us, it's like this return of remembrance of our own sacredness.
Yeah.
And also like collapsing out numbing shields where we actually, can't even fully feel our emotions and our desires fully.
Yeah.
And for our inner masculine architecture, like the most biggest shift, or that what we've discovered is, just like it's all about the inversions, like in our DNA, and collapsing out the inverted masculine or the inverted feminine, where they're like the opposite of their true organic nature.
Yeah.
And so for the masculine, it's like what we've discovered is like this true trauma. There's like, in our light body, of course, it shows up as implants, and it comes in these forms of false beliefs or false protective mechanisms that we've adopted through trauma to try and protect ourselves. And so like both of us had to really, like it's been very humbling for both of us.
I was just going to say
these mechanisms that we've adopted through trauma, where we had like resistance or defensiveness or, addictions or all these things that we had to become really like honest and, just collapse them out through our devotion. As you mentioned at the beginning, that it's not linear to time or effort or struggle. It's really just proportional to the strength and purity of our devotion.
Yeah.
And that's why that's something that that I specifically like focus on. And we also offer that in our, just when we work with couples, it's the first correction that we want to make is like this devotional high heart correction. Just like strengthening and purifying the devotion and placing God back on the throne of our devotion. Yeah. And that, like, the stronger and pure this inner flame burns, it's like our own willingness to see truth, to collapse out any false identities. It's like our own soul fire that is just ready to return home to heaven on earth and do whatever it takes to burn down whatever it takes. And that's really just the key to everything. When that is activated, it just activates like this transmutational power and co-creation power in our hearts. And that's when we can really just make almost instantaneous miraculous shifts and really upgrade our DNA.
Yeah, that's very well said. And it's so funny you said humble humility, and right when you said that, I was thinking, oh, you sure have to eat a lot of humble pie in these connections. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say if you're not eating some humble pie, you're probably not at the point you think you are. I don't want to be that, I don't want to be say something like that as a gospel, because I don't consider myself an authority on it. But I do feel that the partnerships are a reflection of the individual journey. They're just now you have a partner, and that's a very powerful opportunity. That certainly expands the potential because it expands the visibility of the frequency of the Trinity. When you see a couple versus you see one person. But there's definitely a lot of humility. It's very much to me like the individual journey I had before I met her, and really in those times when we were apart, and even when we're together. And I'd spend some time alone because I think we mentioned this on the last show. One thing about, and you just kind of hit on this too, Saskia, I think what you were really talking about was trusting the divine. And, it's one thing to trust the divine in that dialogue we have with it, but then when you have the mirror in the physical in front of you, and to then duplicate that, that's a very, very powerful thing. And for me, I say it this way, it's so cool from day one to be with, and I took a little longer, but to be with somebody who I know is going to handle their stuff. That's the bottom line.
Right. Devotion.
Like so, yeah. And like Morgan says, no matter what, you always go back to love. And so here you've got someone to be able, or something to be able to anchor that ground back into that, what you're describing so well. Mm. Yeah. Yes. Have you guys had, like in terms of the non-physical, and I know you've been physically together pretty much the whole time you've known each other, but do you have non-physical experiences? I mean, it could be anything from telepathy to intuitive thought to light bodies merging to shared dimensional experiences. I mean, do you guys have anything like that going on?
Yeah, for sure. In the realm of doing work together, when we sit down and do multidimensional healing work, at some point in receiving the upgrades and receiving the work, there is a lot that can happen within that, within our union template coming together, and also within the family template. And then as far as the full emergence goes, that I mean, that more happens in the realms of sacred sexuality, and those emergences. But it can also happen through entering the still point together, when we're meditating or doing our work, when we're at a point of deep surrender and devotion and offering ourselves up. Then there can be a lot of magic and multidimensional experiences that happen. I mean, there's so many of them, I can't even remember.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah. And that's another thing too. I know that, Chris, like I said, we were a virtual relationship, well, a etherical relationship, which I believe was a, divine guidance or divine orchestration to be able to etherically merge many times through Helios Gamos. Really gave us a great foundation, but when you come into physical, as you know, everything gets accelerated, and but one of the things that always brings me right back, it hasn't been necessary in a while, I'd say in at least 3 or 4 months, is that you start to put whatever's going on, and in the backdrop of it, you have a landscape of all of these incredible non-coincidental, synchronistic, serendipitous moments together that you just can't say no to. It's like the universe saying, hey, if you don't think you know what you have, just remember this.
For sure.
Have you guys experienced any physical triad experiences? What I mean by that is where, we're moved into the age of the Trinity. These couples are a physical representation of mother, father, golden child, or however you want to put it. We've had experiences where we've come across people, and there's been in our physical proximity primarily, and there's been activating code exchange where an individual, is in our presence, and, just by the naturalness of it, it occurs without, any type of orchestration or instruction. Are you noticing anything like that when you mingle with others, be it an individual or a couple?
Can you speak about your son? Okay, I'll share it. When we're together with Liam is my stepson, is our son, but it's Saskia had a child 7 years ago. He's 7 now. There are moments when her and I are really in this presence that I feel something spectacular, unspoken occur between all 3 of us. Wow. Which I call the restoration of the sacred family blueprint. Even though I wasn't his biological father, the energy of the sacred family and the healing between father and son, there's a healing that happens in the family template, and the original family blueprint is restored. So that's one example of what's happened with our divine union with the third person. And then I've had a course I've been running called Voice of the Magi. And there was a time I brought Saskia to offer a session in, and I had a couple of my students comment that they felt something very special with her and I's presence holding space. So even though I was the only one holding space, she came in for this moment, and they got a taste of what happens when they're held by both of us simultaneously. And it added to their experience of Holy Father, Holy Mother energies, being able to support certain aspects of them in feeling support to come online. So while she has some incredible blueprints, I have some blueprints. When they're together, it's like 1 + 1 = 10. Everything magnifies. And so in that sense, I really believe in the power divine unions to activate others. We haven't been going out and hanging out in the physical with many people. We've been very much at home with our son, and then just teaching. And we're going to do our first online course together. So it's going to be beautiful to see in the context of a 6-week container, how we can facilitate a group through a protocol. And so, yeah, I'll let you know how that goes, and we'll have some more stories.
Well, even the thing with Liam, though, that's interesting. The first thing that pops in my head is, and I've never seen him, but because of the fact that you guys, and I don't know if it's energetic or physical, but you look like twins. I would bet that when you go out with Liam, people just absolutely think that, you know, you're his biological father. I mean, I would think there's got to be some kind of resemblance based on the energetic resemblance that y'all have. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's what I'm talking about. You know, I know when we went to Sedona, Morgan downloaded, you know, some things that would happen, which was us meeting androgynous beings and meeting other couples of the same frequency, which it all came to pass. But one of the things I noticed too, I think it was the first or second day I was there, I tend to get out and mingle with people a lot more than she does. She's more of a unicorn. She goes out when she has to. But I remember the first or second day I was there, I went and met, it was one person, but then there was a couple that I didn't know that was with that person. And I just distinctly remember, I was having tea with him or coffee, and I remember going, "Wow, it's happening right now," and she's not even here. So I knew in that moment that even though she wasn't there, that I was holding, I was holding in the physical what we had in the energetic field, and I could see the interaction etherically with both the couple and with my friend individually. So. Yeah, that's to be noted, no doubt. How about the impact of Liam? I mean, these children are just freaking amazing, the frequency that they have. And then you're probably maybe the fifth or sixth, what did you call it? The Divine Family template that I've run into on this show, where they have children in the house, that the entire family is conscious. What kind of impact has he had? Because you've got a very fantastic story. He's 6, 7 years old, and we all know these kids are not stupid. And not to mention that they've actually got some frequencies that are running that we've had shut down, that they haven't been maligned or tainted. But has there been an impact with him on your relationship, on your life? I mean, is he connected in any way that you can tell, or does he see what's happening?
I have a lot to say. You want to start?
Sure. I mean, we've just been blown away by just, what's this dynamic, how it's been like harmonizing itself between the three of us. Like, we've encountered certain blocks at the beginning that we thought were going to be impossible to overcome, but like, there's just been so much healing happening, and like just between the three of us, because I mean, me and Lukiajah just do so much timeline repair and soul retrieval and healing between the two of us. But then at a certain point, we started to integrate Liam, because he actually loves to receive sessions. He really loves that, and so we do like also DNA upgrade sessions and timeline repair, soul retrieval on him, and it has an incredible impact on him. We actually noticed right after the session, like, his change in behavior. Yeah. And it always takes a few days or weeks to integrate, and then we notice like a new thing that we can work on and integrate, and ask him if he wants to receive that upgrade, and he's ready for it. And so it's just beautiful how every one of us that does like a healing, it's like adding to the puzzle, creating more harmony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm giggling because I can imagine this kid going into second, third grade and going to school and telling and having a conversation. Let me help you recalibrate your DNA, or just these topics. I mean, but I have a feeling that these kids are it's not unusual to them. Uh-oh.
Yeah, we just lost you for a second there. We couldn't hear what you were saying. But
okay, I got you.
But I'll just.
That's your signal.
Can you see?
It's coming back. Hang on.
Okay, there we
It's
are.
coming back. Can you hear?
Yeah.
I think it's your signal. It's your signal. It's okay. We got this.
Okay.
Everybody just
we
apply their energy.
I don't know why the camera.
You want to go out? You want to go out and come back in? You try that. You try to go out and come back in. It looks like your signal's weak.
Sure. We'll come out and come back in.
Yeah, that's cool. We're good. All right. Appreciate everybody's comments. It's a good show, right? Good people. They look just alike, don't they? I'd love to see their son. Let's see. I'm going to ask them if maybe the three of them can come on sometime. At some point. No, I'm not crying, Morgan. I don't know why my nose is running. Morgan, are you crying, Todd? Yeah, I think their signal just got really, really weak. I could tell. There's a little graph over here. I'll be back in a second. So, yeah, we're what? We got 2 more days in 2020, and I believe there's a full moon on the horizon. If it's not today or tomorrow, let's see. Here they come. Let's go. Boom. All right, it's coming. It's just your signal. Yeah. We may have lost them. Yeah, we may have lost them. We'll see. Let's give it a couple more minutes. It's 22:44 here, and you've frozen for me. Okay. Well, we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna look up the full moon. Let's see, full moon. I believe they said it was the cold moon or the ice moon, something like that. There they are. You're back. Yeah, you're back. We can see you now. It was just your signal. Can you hear me? Oh, it's going to take a second.
All right, we've switched to the.
You're good. Oh yeah, we do that. Yeah.
Can you hear? Okay. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, we could hear you before. We could hear
All right, we're back in action.
Yeah, your signal went down. It's full blast now. You don't have to put those in your ears if you don't want to. We could hear you.
No, we're good.
Okay.
This is the best way.
Just so everybody knows, Adam said that in 3 hours the full moon occurs. Oh, Morgan says 5 hours. Okay, so sometime in the next 3 to 5 hours, full moon. So you guys were now when you met, were you both? I know that Lukiajah was, but Saskia, were you already an energy practitioner as well?
Yes. I had just started. I mean, I've been on a spiritual journey for many years before, but it was only about like 1.5 years or about 1 year before I actually met Lukiajah that I really came into, this inner divine union, between my soul and God on a deeper level where I just restored my devotion and, was just working on rebuilding this trust between my soul and God. And that's when, just everything accelerated for me so much when I was able to get out of loops that I had been working through for many years and just have real breakthroughs and, then also just, shortly meet my true beloved.
Yeah. It's so many parallels, as I listen to your story energetically, but one of the things that happened with us is we were both celibate when we met by our own choice of not knowing each other, but just through the circumstances in our own lives and decisions we had made in our own lives. And of course, we can look back at that and see that, in fact, we remained celibate even quite a while, even after we got together, But there was something about that being a reset in terms, and we're a little bit older, we obviously been more conditioned, had more life experience, but there seems to be something to that core part of these when they're romantic connections, in regard to the sacred sexuality, in regard to the intimacy, that sacredness that we were referring to earlier becomes not just a huge potential, but a reality if we can deprogram from all the old junk, which takes such a powerful form in the physical through our prior experience with sexuality. Have you guys, has your sacred sexual intimacy, that vibration, those experiences, which we know isn't just, taking our clothes off and laying in bed and all that stuff, but has there been a marked difference between your relationship and those type of experiences and the ones that you had previous?
Yeah, I think firstly, what you had said is relevant to us too, in that we both made very strong prayers before meeting each other around, hey, I've experienced the karmic soulmate, the passionate soulmate, the false twin flame. I've gone through all these things. All I want right now is you, Source, God. I will commit to my mission. I will not be with any woman until you bring me my true reflection, my true divine union. I won't be with anyone else. I'll resist all temptations. I'll be focused on my mission. I know by within 6 months to a year, you'll bring her to me, and I don't need anything in the meantime. So that's where I was, and she came in pretty soon after that, and she had done her own version of that months prior, and so that was very relevant. And it's kind of like the union, the physical union here, and then the union exists on all these dimensions, all the way to the heart of God. Yeah. So in the lovemaking experience, we can traverse and connect to all the higher dimensional aspects of us, all the way to that source point. Yeah. Where with other types of relationships, there's only certain points. Like maybe we do have a past life connection that kind of enhances the experience, or a galactic connection, but it's not the true divine union where you are sourced and braided and co-created from that highest level, and the experience of that is absolutely distinct and profound.
Yeah, good explanation. Good explanation. Yeah, Morgan downloaded specifically Helioscamos, soul merging, for many years. And I remember her explaining to somebody, we were doing a show on it, they brought up tantric, and she talked about how, and this is not to take anything away from tantric, but to really kind of support what you're saying through our own experience and through her explanation. And that was, she said, tantric is like from the physical, and then you go up. Like you look for that stuff that you're talking about that's all interlaced and segmented all the way up to the divine. But how the Helioscamos template, or whatever you want to call it, actually comes from above and then is anchored into the physical, which, sounds very linear and 2 or 3D, but there's something that I've really noticed over the last few months with ourselves, and that is when the physical really aligns and embodies and anchors that, what you're describing, that interwoven connection all the way to the divine. Wow, man, some really wild things happen, like so much for us, and I don't mean, it could be dimensional experiences, it could be code and information coming in, it could be a lot of things, but one of the things that we've noticed, especially the last 3 months, has been the impact on the physical body. Like we literally have a throw up bowl in the bedroom because we can just be kissing, and the energy is so powerful that we literally start to get waves of nausea in our bodies, and one or the other will have to say, hey, stop, get away from me, but it's being anchored, isn't it? It's really being embodied.
Yeah, and as it embodies it takes us through a systematic process of clearing everything that needs to be cleared out for it to actually embody. which, you know, at times is absolute bliss, and other times it can be uncomfortably revealing. And so, yeah, definitely both. But we can, like the other day, the day after Christmas, we were just on the couch, just holding each other for, I don't know, multiple hours, and it just seemed like 20 minutes because we're just in bliss, just so happy, just so content. It's at home, at peace, and yeah, it's powerful, the alchemy.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Is like you brought up a good point. I think the last encounter we had, I think she asked me the next day, well, what was that, like 45 minutes? I said, no, it's 2.5 hours. You know, and you're right. It seems like it's like 20 minutes, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's a time. There's a timeless element to it, no doubt. I know that in like some of the experience we've had, you know, this goes back a couple of years. I've actually seen light language on her back. I've seen her, I guess, you know, for lack of a better word, morph or shapeshift into different aspects of herself, be they Egyptian goddess or, you know, I remember one time she had blue skin with 8 arms, and, you know, or I can see multiple, you know, she can be laying next to me, and then I see another part of her that's sitting up, and, you know, it's an interesting thing because there seems to be a gateway or a portal, which is probably the feminine, you know, when you think about it. But I mean, there's something, a doorway or something there where the physical as we believed it and the non-physical that we had yet to see come together and start to integrate. Have you guys got any type of, I don't mean like in literal terms, but I mean energetically, or can you relate to that? Have you had any experiences where you can feel the what we would call dimensional or non-physical integrating with your physical when you're together?
Well, I mean, we've just had a lot of memories of ancient timelines come up for us, you know, like especially like Atlantis, Lemurian timelines, where we were, you know, just suddenly like one of us was, you know, experiencing something, and we were able to put the pieces together, like what happened between us, and it just absolutely like matched. It's like, you know, just the compass in our hearts of like how we were feeling, you know, for example, the grief, or, you know, the pain of separation. Just we're actually able to remember exactly like how these stories occurred back then. Or once we even had like a memory of the Luciferian rebellion. Like it sometimes goes back like really ancient times we didn't even know existed. You know, it shows us a lot about certain timelines where, you know, we didn't even have that much knowledge, you know, about reading up anything. It's just like revealed to us in visions, through inner knowing, to our feeling, when we dive in and we feel like what needs to be repaired or what has happened between us. And I mean, that's been like the main part. First, do you want to add something?
Well, I think because our initial work has been to do timeline corrections and resolve all the timelines that came between us, the initial visions that we've been getting were predominantly around how to resolve that. But we've also had visions of our, like you were saying, our multidimensional selves or higher selves. I know I've seen a beautiful vision. I'm less visual. I'm more of a gnosis and a feeler, and I hear things. But sometimes I get visions as well. But I've seen her and her higher dimensional self, and that what that triggered in me is a deeper reverence for who she is and who we are on the higher dimensions, and braiding that in to restore my ability to have reverence for the feminine. So sometimes these visions can impact us because they're not only visions, but they carry a transmission of a knowledge packet of information that comes with it, oftentimes, which either informs us on the timeline we need to see, or the higher dimensional vision we need to integrate and then upgrade from.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's something to it. You know, you just said that too. And I remember about 3 days ago, when I was, in that inner dialogue in regard to sacredness, sanctity, and what was presented to me was, and it's not the first time, but I mean, it was presented to me for a reason. She was presented to me at the highest level. Like I could see her in all her divinity and all her perfection. And it was in purity. And it was presented to me. In other words, if it would have been a conversation, what I would have been receiving was something along the lines of, this is how you see her. This is how you will see her more and more consistently from a conscious standpoint. And that in and of itself is like the root of transformation, because now this was what was being shown to me, because the error or the misalignment occurred when the goddess was, I guess, energetically brought down, was minimized or subjugated, So I thought that was, it happened very quickly, and but I can see where, I guess for all intents and purposes, that's where we have to start, not just as an individual, but as a couple, and of course go from there to the collective. But yeah, she is the key. I still think that if God has a gender, God's a woman. That's just my opinion.
No, the vision that you're sharing is it's a shared vision, and it is our work, or my belief. I'll speak for myself. It's my work as a man to recondition and restore my ability to hold that, and to hold that for her, and hold that in reverence in me, in seeing that in her, and in a way that is also honoring of the masculine. And this is the kind of the key distinctions that happen sometimes in the New Age or feminist movements. Like there's an imbalance in that someone gets lifted up, but someone gets brought down, or there's like a false light version of it. But I agree with what you're saying, and the organic pathway of really seeing and cherishing and holding reverence for that sacred feminine, and seeing what dark forces and human beings have done to dishonor the feminine, the earth herself, and we can really begin to repair and restore that through how we treat ourselves, our soul, our inner feminine, how we can support our divine feminine counterparts, how we can raise our children, how we can see each other, how we can treat the earth. So yeah, we have a lot to do. We got to roll up our sleeves and begin this together.
Yeah, and the feminine principle is alive in, also in men, of course. It's in every living being. It's just, in all of life. And so is the masculine. And so it's, for the feminine, it's just been a huge, in both of us, in all of us, just to collapse out this victim consciousness of feeling like a powerless victim. And as you mentioned before, just like restoring this faith again in God, things that seem like impossible challenges, like to remember that we're dependent on God, and that is the power of our inner masculine, to rely on God. And, instead of versus like trying to externally control, the situation externally, or make, the other person change. It's like that's kind of like the inner feminine power of grace, to just go within and, as you said, the inner divine marriage between our soul and God, where we can just alchemize everything within, like between our heart and God's sacred heart. And that's how, the biggest miracle shifts, that's how we've experienced them happening for us on the outside.
Yeah, righteous to that. Yeah, I really identify with Lukiajah on the last show in terms of his very specific, detailed part of his journey in terms of coming to terms with transforming the distorted masculine. And as a point, Morgan just made a comment. When he can do this, he will be able to show that part of himself to her. I would also add to that, because this is what's happened to me over the last few weeks. And that is that I was able, by holding her in that energetic esteem in her proper place, I was actually able to show that part of me to me. And my feminine came out and spent a couple of days with me and has shown itself other ways. It's a little bit freaky at times to the human aspect, to the man, with his muscles. But, and I'm sure it's the same for her, in parts of the journey. But to me, that was a really big part of the latter part of this year. And in talking to you last time was in the middle of that. And that was almost, I'd explain it another way, would be like, okay, I'm giving up. I think you referenced this earlier, actually. I'm giving up this distortion and these roles and labels and these patterns and behaviors. And this is what's come in. And it's a feminine voice for me. As this distorted masculine's transformed, it's not just the divine masculine coming to the surface. It's also this divine feminine within myself. So it's the type of stuff I think that needs to be talked about, and one of the very relevant things about these connections.
Yeah, and I think there's something as you're talking that's being just being revealed to speak about, and that's that we have these two pure beings. Let's just call it a man and a woman for the sake of this dynamic, who come together and they love each other, and the love is pure and they're pure. However, the woman was subjugated, targeted, traumatized in childhood and however many lifetimes. And because of that, has these specific coping mechanisms she learned to protect herself and to deal with the pain and the trauma. Same thing happened to the man. They come together in union, and then something happens to trigger, let's say, one of their mechanisms. The woman gets triggered, and then she doesn't respond from her higher self. She responds from the protective mechanism, the inverted protector, and then that triggers the trauma in the man, and then that triggers his inverted protector, and then they're in a loop of the inverted protectors going in this dance, re-traumatizing one another's childhood and soul level woundings. And so that's what happens in unions until, one of two things. Either one person has to break it, really surrender to God and become the one to be like, I'm going to hold the higher space. I'm going to hold the vision of who my partner is, and I'm going to support them to get through it. Or they both have to decide, if they're both triggered, we actually need to do this together and surrender up, or they need to get the support to intervene and break down that pattern. Yeah. And this is so important to be able to have the restraint when we get the false protector to come in, when we get our triggers. How do we deal when we get triggered? What are we going to do? And what are the tool belt? What's the tool belt and the skill set that divine unions need to have to make it through and break the chains of these karmic loops that have been strategically caused by dark forces to keep unions from coming together and to break them up? We need to have the solutions and the healing, and that's been one of the main themes of, okay, what are the skill sets? What are the tool belts for individuals in divine unions to not allow the agenda of the dark forces to come between us to be successful, so that the unions can come back together, the family blueprints can be restored, and then we can go to the next step, which is creating the sacred communities built from the foundation of the divine union, and the divine family blueprint blossoms the sacred community on a whole new level than we've never seen. And then from there, the sacred earth connection and the sacred galactic connection. But it all starts with our devotion to God, then from the unions, and then the families, and then the communities, and then the global and galactic expansion of sovereignty.
Which truly, if it is a pure alignment, which is what we're all on the trajectory of it, as it ing on the word, as it's aligning, all those parts of us are served equally, like self, the partnership, the collective, the universe, God, you know, however you want to put it. Yeah, that's and so I love what I'm hearing. I fully expect that a year from now we'll do a show and you guys will have a temple that the two of you and Liam, and you know, taking people through the Divine Family template. There's, you know, and I think a lot of the stuff that you guys must come across. We don't really typically work with couples. It's not, you know, Morgan's a practitioner. I'm not. But I know you guys. That's part of your third energy. The energy work that you do, both with individuals and couples, both together and separate. But I think, from my vantage point, one of the big challenges that I've seen couples contend with has been that fine line between knowing who you are to each other, what you are to each other, and attachment. Attachment to, you know, over-identifying or demanding that this has to be this way. You know, we are this no matter what. I've watched it. It's very interesting. And I'm lucky to have a partner was pretty much non-attached from the get-go, and I was to a degree. But I've watched people struggle with that, which has kind of created, you know, I guess a bad connotation in some regards to the term twin flame. But do you run across that when you're working with couples? Do you see where there's kind of a fine line between knowing and over identification or attachment to, you know, it's a really weird kind of a tightrope, isn't it?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. So, I mean, that just occurs a lot of the times when we need to first like make this correction of the devotional template. So it really just, in my experience, it comes down to, you know, like if, like here in the high heart, there's like this Trinity triangle architecture, like, you know, it can be collapsed. And when we raise it and we place God and like truth itself, like on the throne before anyone or anything else, like then we just really, you know, there's no risk of having attachment, because we would rather like, you know, like kill a part of our ego. We would rather like release something that we believe belongs to us, than, you know, just stay, you know, in a comfortable illusion and just be willing. It's like that devotion is like this willingness to make this sacrifice. And when we can really make this inner vow, that just like shifts everything. Like, you know, in some circumstances, it might mean like the crumbling of, you know, certain connections that were never true connections to begin with, or it just can like collapse out toxic like cords, or, you know, yeah, that can be then rebuilt on a true foundation. So, you know, it just depends on the situation. But it's just, if we're not first doing something for truth's sake, then, you know, it's just, yeah, it's like true love really just needs those both elements of love and truth combined. Otherwise, it's just not true love, you know?
Yeah. Oneness is oneness, right?
Unless we've had enlightened parents, we're likely raised with codependent patterns, and then also not seen for who we truly were, and then had voids within that we tried to fill with other people until we started going through our spiritual sovereignty process. And so with that said, I think one of the reasons why we didn't come together until, you know, she was 33 and I'm 35 is I needed to go through over a decade, almost 2 decades of deep work to close the codependency gap. And so that when I met her, I wouldn't do the latching on thing. And then start to build my identity and my wholeness through the union.
Yeah.
You know, that work has to be done first. And because we did that work very vigorously, when we've come into union, I can see, at least for myself, very subtly, there might be a little part of me that can start to have a little emotional attachment, wanting to feel better, especially if I'm in a trigger through the union. And then I had to keep reminding myself to source from that place and to really do that work. And I think for clients that I've worked with, this is a huge thing, and it's a huge block to the actual union itself, is when our longing for our mate is stronger than our devotion to source, or and our willingness to surrender. And then the identity and identifying with who that person is to us I think it's very healthy to let that go continuously, and to transcend it and give it all up, and then see what comes back, and continually do that. Because actually every phase of our evolutionary journey, we have to do that with who we think we are anyways. What we think we know. In order to get to the next level, we have to go through the portal of still point and that ego death. And so I think this is a skill set that's not taught to humanity, is how to go through the still point, how to transcend the ego framework of who we think we are and what things are to us. And so, yeah, that's something that needs to be, you know, re-educated into the system. True soul sovereignty, a healthy sovereignty.
Yeah, right on. Very well explained. Yeah, and it's a lot like that vision that I was talking about, that you were talking about with Saskia, and maybe that's a reason that I can't sustain myself for long periods of time in that sacred sexual vibratory space, because that's a space where she is the goddess. And that's not just lip service. I mean, it's actually becoming embodied, where you're actually with the universe. You're with the mother goddess. I mean, it's all one and the same thing. So I love what you're saying, because it reminds me of the trajectory that I feel like I'm on, and that we're on, all of us, which is to see that which you're describing in each and every person that we come across. But how can you do that if you can't do it with your partner first? You know, I think that's one of the values, great values of these couples, and also think it's a huge part of their work, because it's not easy to be in this dense environment and to be subjected to the codependent templates and distorted frequencies that you were referring to earlier, that most people are you know, subjected to if they don't have conscious parents. And I don't know too many people that did, but you know, it's like, and we're starting to have experiences where our consciousness, our perception of each other, of what we are, is now being taken to others, like, you know, a friend, you know. I can think of a brother we have in California, two of them actually, where we're actually able to share that frequency that we have. I guess you would call it sacred union or divine union frequency or Trinity frequency with others. And I can only see that's how it would go. I mean, how can we have heaven on earth when we still have separation? I mean, you know, I don't know if we're actually going to get there, if it's all of our incarnations are leading us there, but it's certainly happening. You know, I see it as happening. And you with Liam is another great example, I think.
Yeah, I think there was only a certain level that I could get to on my own.
Yeah.
And then coming into union is restoring so much. You know, the intelligence of source wants to restore what was damaged here for the original blueprint. What does a healthy civilization look like? A healthy union, a healthy family, a healthy community, a healthy world look like? And what was the damage done? And then we can only do so much together. Then we need Liam, the family, and then we're gonna have another child. We need the whole blueprint.
Oh,
then
you
we're
are?
gonna. Oh yeah.
When is that coming?
God knows. God knows.
I'm just messing with you.
No, but no, absolutely. I think the work that divine unions are going to do and are doing, and then that will expand into family templates and communities.
Yeah.
Is going to be restoring the organic blueprint of heaven on earth, of the architecture that we're meant to live in.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And so it's like the Trinity is, you know, of course we talked about it, and this is not anything new, but I mean, it's the masculine and feminine within ourselves, creating that conception of that third energy. There's your triad. Then you have a physical expansion where you now have, like say in your case with Liam, in our case it might be SOULOGY, or the work that we do together, or the work that you do together, where you start to mix those energies. And then it starts to, like we've had people that have come into our field, several, that we've interacted with, and the next thing you know, they've met somebody, and they're in a divine union, just like that. So it's showing itself in a lot of different ways. But I agree with you. I think this is, at a minimum, one of the one of the divine templates that's working as an accelerator for the Trinity energy, which obviously you can see in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff. I'd love to hear from Saskia in this moment, because it just moved to. I want to thank you both for this experience. It's a lot like, and stay with me on this. It's a lot like a sacred sexual vibratory experience for me, because that is, to me, like the core. You know, we can do things in dimension and we can talk about things, but to actually be in a field of purity that has a physicalness to it is a very powerful thing. So it's somewhat energetically depleting, but it's because there's a lot of code being exchanged. And I just wanted to ask Saskia, you know, in this moment, like, what message would you have for because the female incarnates, the feminine energy has led the way. There's no question about this. Nothing started until she landed and said, "I'm done. We're going to get this thing done." And then the masculine energy has come to meet. But there's a lot of strong, powerful feminine incarnates out there that I'm sure would like to hear from someone like you. What would you tell them as we go forward from here? For those that haven't met a partner, for those that still have questions, what would you offer to them in terms of how to operate from this point forward, based on your experience?
I mean, for me, like, I would just focus on raising the inner masculine inside, you know, just the inner protector. And also just, for me, like, the feminine power is really just like coming in touch again with our emotions and our true desires. And not from a place where we feel like we won't be met. You know, we just, when we are met inside first by the divine cosmic father principle, father God, you know, then it's like not a place from longing where we feel we'll be disappointed. We start to feel comfortable with you know, just bringing all our emotions to God, like our fears, our pains, and it starts this inner activation in our heart, the hierarchical union and mission template, where we actually start to alchemize our pain and co-create our deepest, truest soul desires. So it's, you know, the message would be to just, you know, just be basically admitting to ourselves that we need God, and, you know, that we can't do it alone, and just becoming very honest inside, what do we truly desire, you know, and then from that place, just, you know, being honest that we have these needs, and, you know, just filling them up inside through, you know, the cosmic masculine principle. And that's when it's mirrored externally.
Yeah, very well put. Lukiajah, what would you offer to men?
To be honest, where there is pain that you're coping with, what's your coping mechanisms, identify them, and create the same relationship with Source, God, Holy Father, Holy Mother, however you want to call it, where you are willing to have the presence of God, Source, be your coping mechanism, and start getting rid of the coping mechanisms you've been using until it's you and God and your commitment and your devotion to your mission, until you're like, I will do whatever I'm here to do. All these coping mechanisms that have been distracting me, I give them up. Let's go. Let's get it on. I will cry. I will get on my knees again and again and again until you lift me up. I'll bring you into my pain. Let's do this. I'm committed. And these are my desires. I want my union partner. I want to be feeling safe and stable. I want to be a good man. I want to be a protector. Build me up. Let's do this. And then follow the inspiration from that devotional path every day, every day, every day, and see the magic that happens. And then get some support. Reach out to us. We're here for you guys. You know, we will be offering these codes and these teachings. Just reach out, and we'll support whoever wants to, you know, be on the journey with us.
Do you have a website, or you do it through Facebook or other social?
Yeah, our website will be up. It's called www.divineunionalchemy.com. It'll be up in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
For now,
let me know when it is. So we
yeah, for now, people can find us on Facebook or write us at divineunionalchemy@gmail.com, and we'll get back to you. Okay. We're actually starting a course at the end of January for individuals and couples that we're just going to share the templates that we've received in 6 weeks. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool, man. Very powerful. I would love to collaborate with you guys in 2021 and co-create with you. And, you know, if Liam wants to sit down with us next time or sometime in 2021, whatever, individually, both of you, whatever. Cool. But I certainly want to just say thank you for coming in, and also thank you for your service to humanity and for owning what you are, you know. And I love the fact that both of you answered this question with a very, very thorough answer. But to me, the one thing that stands out the most for me is the word desire. And that's one thing that's always been, I've always seemed to understand, even in the cloudier moments or the more unconscious periods of my life, is that when we have the desire and we state that desire, declare that desire, really command a certain level of creativity that you can't deny. No different than you asking for her, me jumping off a couch at 3:33 in the morning and asking for Morgan, and she messaged me 5 minutes later, and I didn't even know her. So I mean, this is the kind of stuff that happens. But I really appreciate your openness. Thank you. You didn't have to go that deep, and it's a powerful opportunity to receive code for anyone that watches it. So I just want to say thank you, and all blessings to the two of you and your beautiful son.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, wonderful to connect with you, and we'll see you again in 2021.
Absolutely.